They said no one outside the boardroom could ever understand the system. They said only the qualified could fix it. But on the night the city's perfect order began to fall apart, it wasn't a chairman in a green suit who saved them. It was a delivery driver with a worn backpack and a heart full of resolve. In a world where stories speak louder than words, this is Black Inside USA. Real emotions, real people, real change. The city of Viridian Heights stood like a jewel against the night sky, every light carefully approved, every angle symmetrical. The homeowner's authority prided itself on being the most advanced neighborhood management system ever created. Drones trimmed hedges to precise standards, even rainfall was moderated for aesthetic consistency. At the top of the glass-paneled towers sat the HOA Executive Council, 7 members in identical emerald suits, the guardians of perfection. They believed rules were beauty, and beauty meant control, but perfection has a price. Down below, where the towers, shadows stretched across the delivery districts, Nia Carter adjusted the straps on her oversized courier pack. She had just finished her 3rd shift of the day, her back aching, her wrist sore from carrying insulated boxes up endless stairwells. Yet, as tired as she was, she never forgot to look up. Those towers always reminded her why she kept moving, the dream that maybe, one day, someone like her could belong up there. That night, though, the sky itself was restless. Faint blue streaks crackled across the skyline, signs of a system fault in Viridian's automated grid. Most residents didn't notice, but on the top floor of the HOA tower, alarms were blinking red. "Gentlemen and gentle lady," said Director Mallory, the man with arms perpetually folded, "we have a catastrophic grid imbalance. The irrigation units are overloading, and the drainage drones have frozen." Around the long mahogany table, the other 6 engineers whispered in disbelief. Their system, the most regulated in the region, was failing. The elegant perfection they'd built was unraveling. "We'll fix it," said Engineer Ross, sweating. "We just need to recalibrate the equilibrium sequence." "You've been recalibrating for 3 hours," Mallory snapped. "This board doesn't tolerate excuses." Below, water began spilling through manicured lawns. The ornamental gardens that once symbolized control were now turning to mud. Mallory's gaze swept across the room. "I want solutions, not theories." But the council had nothing, only pride and panic. Meanwhile, Nia was making one last delivery, a package labeled, "Priority, Tower District." That was unusual. Delivery workers like her rarely had access to HOA headquarters, but the app directed her there, and she needed the credits. When she arrived at the entrance, 2 security drones scanned her ID. "Delivery verification, authorized." As the elevator rose, Nia glanced at her reflection in the mirrored walls, orange shirt, round cargo pants, tired eyes. She straightened up. Whatever waited above, she would handle it. The elevator doors opened to chaos. Engineers in green suits ran between consoles, shouting technical jargon. On a central screen, the entire neighborhood map pulsed red. "Who authorized a courier here?" Mallory barked. Package delivery, sir," Nia said softly, holding out the parcel. Mallory waved impatiently. "Leave it on the desk." "Get out." But as she set the box down, her eyes caught a blinking line of code on one of the open terminals. A pattern, familiar. She frowned. "Wait," she murmured, "that command loop's feeding back on itself." The room froze. Mallory turned sharply. "What did you say?" Nia hesitated. "I used to work maintenance for the city grid before automation replaced most of us." "That code, it's recursive. It's calling itself indefinitely. If you don't cut the loop, it'll overload your drone network." Engineer Ross squinted at the monitor. "She's right." The council erupted in whispers. Mallory's jaw tightened. "Impossible. That algorithm was vetted by 20 certified engineers." "Then maybe all 20 made the same mistake," Nia said, her voice steady. Mallory stepped closer. "You think a delivery worker knows better than this board?" Nia met his eyes. "I think sometimes the people fixing things by hand see what the ones behind screens miss." A silence fell across the room. Outside, distant thunder rolled, the automated weather system struggling against the failing power grid. Mallory exhaled sharply. "Fine, prove it. If you're wrong, you'll be escorted out." Nia nodded. "Deal." She approached the console, her fingers moving swiftly. The green-suited engineers exchanged uneasy looks as the room filled with lines of streaming data. Then, beep, the warning lights dimmed. The grid map began stabilizing, one section at a time. Engineer Ross blinked in disbelief. "She did it." Mallory's expression hardened. He didn't like being proven wrong, especially not by someone he considered an outsider. Nia stepped back. Your system's still fragile. You've been stacking updates without clearing the old protocols. It's like building towers on cracked foundations. Mallory's face flushed. That will be all. Nia started to leave, but as she reached the elevator, he called after her. You'll sign a confidentiality clause. What happened tonight stays within the board. She turned. Of course. Wouldn't want anyone to know the system isn't as perfect as it looks. The doors closed. In the days that followed, Viridian Heights returned to its normal rhythm. Trimmed lawns, synchronized lights, drones humming like obedient bees. But inside the tower, something had shifted. Mallory couldn't shake the image of that calm young woman solving what 20 engineers couldn't. It gnawed at him. He told himself it was luck, or a fluke, but he knew better. Meanwhile, Nia's delivery route took her past the tower every evening. She tried to forget it too, but each time she saw the rooftop lights, she remembered how it felt to stand in that room, how it felt to matter. Then, one morning, a message flashed on her courier app. System error, route unavailable, report to Central. When she arrived, security officers confiscated her ID. Your authorization's been revoked, one said flatly. What? Why? No reason given. WA directive. Her stomach dropped. They were cutting her off, for helping. She spent the rest of the day wandering through the lower sectors, the hum of drones above like distant thunder. That night, a familiar voice called from behind her. You shouldn't have come back here. Nia turned. It was Ross, the younger engineer from the tower. His green suit was gone. He looked tired, worn. What are you doing here? She asked. He looked around nervously. The system's failing again. Mallory covered up your fix. He said it was a temporary patch. Now half the automation grid's collapsing. The board's panicking. Nia crossed her arms. Let me guess, they still won't ask for help. Ross shook his head. They'd rather watch it burn than admit a mistake. Nia's jaw tightened. Then maybe it's time someone told the truth. 2 nights later, Viridian Heights descended into chaos. Lights flickered across the skyline. Drones spiraled out of control, crashing into glass towers. Automated gates locked residents inside their homes. At the center of it all, the WA boardroom was a storm of voices. Mallory slammed his fist on the table. We are the guardians of order. We will not beg for outside interference. Ross spoke up. Sir, we need Nia Carter. She's the only one who understood the feedback loops. Mallory glared. Enough. You're dismissed. But outside, the storm raged. On the streets below, Nia watched the lights go out one by one. She felt fear, but also determination. She grabbed her old maintenance toolkit, slung her courier pack over her shoulders, and started toward the tower. Rain fell hard, neon reflecting off the pavement as she pushed through security barriers. When she reached the control floor, Mallory stood frozen before the flickering map. You again, he hissed. Your system's dying, she said. Let me fix it. He stared at her, then at the collapsing grid. Pride battled panic. Finally, he stepped aside. You have 5 minutes. Nia's fingers flew across the controls. She rerouted circuits, stabilized nodes, and bypassed corrupted AI routines. The hum of drones returned outside, a steady rhythm of recovery. When the main monitor turned green, she exhaled, trembling. It was over. Mallory looked at her silently. For the first time, the man in the perfect green suit seemed small. The next morning, Viridian Heights woke to sunlight and silence. No alarms, no chaos, just the soft whir of drones back on track. Residents believed the WA had saved them. But inside the boardroom, the truth hung heavy. Ross approached Nia quietly. You saved thousands of homes. Again, she smiled faintly. I just fixed what was broken. He hesitated. Mallory's calling a meeting. You should come. When Nia entered the room, the council members stood in a stiff line. Mallory faced her. His voice was steady but subdued. Miss Carter, the board acknowledges your contribution. However, this council operates under strict hierarchy. External assistance cannot be formally recognized. Nia laughed softly. You mean you can't admit someone without a green suit saved your system, twice? Mallory didn't answer. She looked around the room, at the polished table, the mirrored walls, the city gleaming outside. You know, all your rules, your uniforms, your codes, they're supposed to make things perfect. But perfection isn't order, it's honesty, it's knowing when you're wrong. With that, she turned and walked out. Mallory watched her go, his reflection wavering in the glass. For the first time, he wondered if the rules he defended so fiercely had built not perfection, but a cage. The morning after Nia walked out of the glass tower, the city of Viridian Heights looked perfect again. The drones moved in flawless rhythm, the lawns glowed in soft symmetry, and every window reflected the same calm sky. But behind that calm, something had changed. People whispered, word had spread quietly, someone from outside the board had saved the system. A delivery driver, a woman who didn't fit the mold. No one said her name aloud in the tower, but everyone felt it. Down in the lower district, Nia sat on the edge of a small rooftop, watching the morning light ripple over the skyline. Her courier app no longer worked, her badge had been revoked. She could no longer enter the places she once delivered to, but for the first time in her life, she didn't feel small. She'd seen the truth inside that tower, the fear that hides behind authority, the pride that breaks under pressure. And she'd seen that real strength wasn't about status or titles. It was about choosing to act when others hesitated. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Ross, meet me at the North Sector Park. You'll want to see this. Nia hesitated, then smiled faintly. She slung her bag over her shoulder and started walking. At the park, Ross stood under the metal canopy, his green suit replaced by plain gray work clothes. He looked nervous but relieved when he saw her. Nia, he said, I'm glad you came. Things inside the HOA are different now. She crossed her arms. Different how? The board's divided, he said quietly. Some of them, especially Mallory, want to tighten control even more after what happened. But a few of us think it's time to open the system. Time to let real people have a say. Nia frowned. You're talking about giving residents access to the network. Ross nodded. Community maintenance, shared oversight. It's risky, but it's the only way to keep the system human. She looked at him, skeptical. And you think Mallory will allow that? Ross sighed. He's still fighting it, but he's losing support. They can't ignore what you did. Nia shook her head. I didn't do it for them. I know, Ross said softly. That's why it matters. Inside the tower, Mallory stood at the giant window overlooking Viridian Heights. His reflection stared back at him, immaculate suit, perfect tie, but eyes hollow with unrest. He remembered the look on Nia's face when she said perfection wasn't order but honesty. Her words had stuck with him like a splinter. For years, he had believed control was the only way to preserve beauty. Yet, when control failed, it wasn't a rulebook that saved them. It was courage, it was instinct. Maybe perfection was never meant to be forced. Mallory turned toward the boardroom. The other council members were already arguing, some about new restrictions, others about public backlash. He raised his hand. Enough. The room fell silent. I've decided to hold a public meeting, he said. The residents deserve to know what happened, and who saved them. Gasps echoed around the table. That's unprecedented, one member protested. Mallory's gaze was calm, so was our failure. 2 days later, the announcement appeared on every screen in Viridian Heights. Public assembly, system restructure hearing, all residents invited. No one had ever been invited to the HOA Tower before. Crowds gathered in the plaza, unsure what to expect. Drones hovered overhead, recording every moment. Nia stood at the back, hidden beneath a hood. She hadn't planned to come, but curiosity drew her there. When the tall doors opened, Mallory stepped forward to the podium. His green suit gleamed under the lights, but his voice was quieter than usual. Citizens of Viridian Heights, he began, our community was built on precision and harmony. We believed that by removing error, we could remove pain. But recently, our system failed, because we forgot that perfection isn't achieved by control, but by connection. The crowd murmured. Mallory continued, the truth is, our grid was restored not by this council, but by someone who understood the city in ways we had forgotten. Someone who saw the beauty in imperfection. He paused, then turned toward the crowd. Nia Carter, if you are here, please step forward. A hush fell. Nia froze. Every instinct told her to stay hidden. But then she saw Ross at the edge of the platform, giving her a small, encouraging nod. She took a breath and walked through the crowd. As she climbed the steps, whispers followed her. Some faces looked skeptical, others amazed. Mallory stepped aside. The floor is yours. Nia looked out at the sea of faces, residents, workers, engineers, families. People who had lived their whole lives under rules written by others. I'm not an engineer, she began. I'm not a board member. I'm just someone who delivers things. But when the system broke, I saw something the rules didn't, a chance to help. She took a breath. I used to think perfection was about doing everything right. But now I know, it's about caring enough to try, even when you're not supposed to. A ripple of quiet emotion spread through the crowd. Viridian Heights doesn't need to be flawless, she said softly. It just needs to be fair. Let people take care of their city, not just obey it. Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't stop. Machines can make things efficient, but only people make them meaningful. When she finished, the plaza was silent for a heartbeat, and then applause began. Slow, hesitant at first, then swelling until the entire square thundered with it. Mallory's eyes lowered. For the first time in his career, applause wasn't for him. But instead of bitterness, he felt something lighter, relief. Weeks passed. The HOA council voted to restructure. For the first time in the city's history, residents were invited to join public maintenance teams. Rules were rewritten, and new community programs began. Nia became part of the new training group, teaching others how to understand the city's systems from the ground up. Ross helped design the open access grid, where data flowed transparently. Mallory stepped down as director, choosing instead to work with the reform committee. The emerald suit became just another color in the crowd. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the towers, Nia walked along the park path that now buzzed with life. Children playing, gardeners tending to flowers by hand, neighbors laughing together. Ross joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You know," he said, handing one over, "the city feels different now. Quieter, but alive." She smiled. Perfection used to mean silence. Now it means balance. He chuckled. "You ever miss the deliveries?" "Sometimes," she said, "but I guess I'm still delivering something, just not packages anymore." They stopped at the fountain, watching as the lights reflected off the water. Across the plaza, a maintenance crew was installing a new plaque at the base of the tower. Nia squinted to read it. "Dedicated to those who remind us that every system, no matter how perfect, needs a human heart." Her throat tightened. She turned to Ross. "Did you write that?" He shook his head. Mallory did. Nia didn't answer. She just smiled, a quiet, grateful smile that said everything words couldn't. Later that night, she returned to her small rooftop in the lower district. The skyline shimmered with soft gold light. For the first time, she didn't feel like an outsider looking up. She was part of it now. The drones flew steady, the gardens bloomed freely, and the once silent streets hummed with life. Nia whispered to herself, perfection was never about control, it was about care. And somewhere in the distance, the city seemed to breathe in agreement. Thanks for watching Black Inside USA. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every story deserves to be heard.